the poor little ACC trying to keep it together.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
ACC trying to add Stanford, Cal, SMU. It only took them, about 40 years to become relevant once again? By the way, beautiful campus there at SMU. Fantastic facilities. Tennessee held a Cotton Bowl week of practice there. And you can see where that money came from. To be little SMU and to be like, wow, this is one of the nicest campuses I've been on. There's a lot of money there. So the ACC wants to add Stanford, Cal, and SMU. Do you think that'll happen? Do you think the ACC can save themselves from complete irrelevance anytime soon?
This could save them. Somebody estimated that they could increase their deal by like $72 million with ESPN. And here's why this could save them. And I've been talking about it for a while. The schools that want to leave the ACC, you seem to get a majority of them to agree to kill the grant of rights agreement. Right now, a majority is 8 schools. Well, if you add Stanford, Cal, and SMU, all of a sudden you need 9 schools to agree to kill the grant of rights agreement. It's a little bit harder, doesn't it? So what the ACC is doing is playing hardball with the Florida States and the Clemsons of the world, and they're trying to keep them stuck in that conference till 2036, and they're doing everything they can in that power. And so they will add Stanford, Cal, and SMU. I wouldn't be surprised if they added Oregon State and Washington State, honestly, just to make it even harder.
What would Tennessee do in the current ACC this year?
They'd be one of the top 2 teams. It'd be Tennessee or Clemson winning the ACC. Nobody else.
What about if you added, would the fans like it if you added SMU, Cal, and Stanford and the ability to travel out west? You know, Tennessee travels really well and they like going to new places. They did a great job of having a fantastic showing in Oregon when the program wasn't good. Would fans, we've never asked ourselves really that question. And now we're past the point, I think, of being regional and having contiguous states is the term Greg Sankey used. Would the SEC and Tennessee and those fan bases, would they like an every couple of year trip out west? I mean, Tennessee traveled to Pitt. They traveled to Miami for the Orange Bowl. They traveled to LSU. Yeah, there's a passionate fan base there. And I wonder if they would enjoy going to Cal, going to Stanford.
Not if they were stuck in the ACC. If I'm a fan, I'm like,
well, no, I
wouldn't want to go there, but then have to play Duke in North Carolina.
Well, I kind of changed. Yeah, I did kind of change gears on you. But if Southern California and UCLA had worked out a deal with the SEC instead of the Big Ten, I still would have criticized it just from the logistics standpoint. But would Tennessee fans have liked that? Now, that's a lot different than going to Oregon and Washington or Washington State. Okay. So, but would fans have appreciated that like that? Would they have, if we flipped the script completely when we talk conference realignment, would fans have liked that in the SEC?
I don't think they would have liked it any more than what they liked in the past, because the way it was in the past, and this is why I didn't like this whole 60-team Super League that's going to happen soon, is that it used to be you had your rivals in the middle of the season, but Labor Day weekend, you had a big game that you traveled for. You know, you traveled out west or somewhere, and then you had your bowl game where you traveled somewhere to play a new team. And then in the middle of the season, you had your big conference games. That's how I felt like college football should work. I feel like college football is like it was the perfect calendar. You start it on Labor Day weekend with a bunch of big games between Power 5 teams. You end it Thanksgiving week. Then you got Conference Championship week the week after. Then you got bowl season. I mean, it was just it was the perfect setup. It was so beautiful. And it's not happening like that anymore. But even this year, the slate of Power 5 games, I don't know if you saw it, Dave, or Labor Day, is terrible. There are hardly any good games on next Saturday. And it's shameful that that's what's happening with college football. Labor Day weekend, should have those. I would say this Labor Day weekend, like whoever plays for the national championship should always play in a rematch the opening weekend of college football. How epic would that be?
Oh, I would love that. And the NFL did that for a while, and then they kind of got away from that, didn't they?
Yeah, you would like Thursday Night Football. It wouldn't always be a rematch between the Super Bowl, but it'd be a rematch between like if you played for the AFC title or something like that. It would be two teams that went very, very far the year before, and they opened the season on Thursday night doing that. Like,
listen, I think if the SEC, if it gets crazy where it's a national sport, and it to some extent already has, but if it takes that next step. Listen, if you add Cal's a great place to watch a football game. It is gorgeous. I mean, that's one of the most gorgeous stadiums. You've got the mountains in the background. I mean, I don't know. I think some fans would like to go out to Cal. I think some fans would like to go. We already had a couple people say that they would love to go to the Rose Bowl. We've kind of looked at this.
And homes are better than neutral site games, are they not?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I can't even – I'm trying hard to think of an example of a great neutral site place
outside of the battle at Bristol, but that wasn't really a trip for anybody. And
well, that just all out was horrible. I went all that way and sat in that traffic and watched a game on television because I couldn't see the field because it was so far away. Have you ever been to
it was
NASCAR
a gimmick,
race?
but it wasn't really worth it, is what you're saying.
No. Have you ever been to a NASCAR race? I mean,
I've camped out in the middle of a NASCAR stadium for a music festival one time, though.
Yeah, I mean, you could take Neyland Stadium and put it in the middle of Bristol Motor Speedway, and that's one of the smallest ones, if not the smallest one, I think. Yeah, I couldn't tell who was out there, and I had no idea who was on the field half the time. You couldn't see jersey numbers. I would have loved to have I wish the late John Ward had called that game and I could interview him after, because he always hated the orange on white numerals before they put the black outlining on it. And he used to always complain about that because it was hard to see the numbers. He might have flipped out and quit in the middle of the second quarter because you couldn't see who anybody was. Can you imagine John Ward, the legend, watching television in his box to call the game? Because that's what it'd have to be. You could not tell a 9 from an 8. We were 100 yards away.
That would be bad. That would be. I totally understand that. Yes.
I mean, I seriously sat there, and for those on the YouTube channel, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button, turn the notifications on. But if you're watching on our video outlets, this is Dave staring up at a TV in the press box instead of watching the game that's right in front of me. That game, they could have stopped the game and moved it to Darlington Motor Speedway, and I still would have been watching TV and probably wouldn't have known that they moved the game.
Oh, Lord. That's great. Yeah, it was definitely a gimmick. So, I mean, I guess long-term, you're right. So home and homes over neutral site, because I'm tired of these games in Atlanta and things like that. Like when Georgia plays Clemson. Well, okay, how about this? Neutral site games when it's two teams in a similar region. Like when Georgia's playing Clemson or something like that, neutral site. But when Georgia's playing USC or when Tennessee's playing Washington or Oregon, yeah, I want the home and home. Because I think Oregon fans would love to travel to Tennessee. Tennessee fans would love a trip to Oregon. I mean, I think that would be so much more fun.
Maybe we ripped the Big Ten a little bit too soon, because there is a cool factor there, but still logistically, I think it's a complete fiasco.